Devonshire.
Hi, I'm Becky.
Hi. And tonight we are here, both of us. I'm so excited to talk to you all about making your Christmas special and making gluten-free accessible and fun for everybody. And I can't tell you how excited I am. I've been a Celiac UK ambassador for now 3 years, since I won MasterChef in 2016. It's genuinely been one of the best things I've done with my trophy. My son was diagnosed when he was 2, so for me it's something I'm really, really passionate about and have first-hand experience with. But Becky is just brilliant. I mean, I'm sure you all follow her on social media, and the fact that she's come on board as a Celiac UK fellow ambassador is just brilliant. So over to Becky now.
Yeah, well, I'm still amazed. I'm so honoured that I was actually asked to become a Celiac UK ambassador, because for me, Celiac UK has been something that's really, really helped me over I've been gluten-free for like 12 years now. And it, at first especially, it was such a struggle, which, I'm sure loads of you watching can totally relate to. And Celiac UK just made me feel more like I had like a community, I guess. And I kind of just want to be able to give that back and be part of the community a little bit more. So I'm really excited. And I'm super excited to just have a good old natter tonight. Just talk Christmas, talk gluten-free, and I guess have a bit of fun, but also try and help you out. Because I know that this time of year is a really sort of a time of year where we all expect to have a really good time, and then we worry that we might not have a good time. But I think together, me and Jane can hopefully help you out to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Well, I hope so. I was just working out that makes 30 years experience of gluten-free cooking between us. So hopefully we've got a few hits and trips.
Definitely.
But no, I agree with you. We were having this conversation when we talked in the past about the fact that it is just food, it's good food, and it should be as fun, as accessible, and as easy for you guys as it is for everyone else. And we're aware it's not always, but we're hoping that we can really help you out tonight, answer some of your questions, maybe have a little bit of fun as well, and just make everybody feel a little bit at ease with something if it's worrying you, or if you've just been diagnosed or something. Like Becky says, for both of us, it's such a passion, and we really are on a mission with this one. So hopefully you've got some lovely questions for us this evening, and we can get cracking. What is your favourite Christmas recipe? What's your favourite one, Becky?
Favourite Christmas recipe? Ooh.
Favourite Christmas food? What's your thing that you think, oh, Christmas, I'm really looking forward to that?
I mean, to be honest, when it comes to Christmas, my favourite thing is the leftovers. I know that sounds really like, it's like the next day kind of stuff, and it's all, I don't know, all the bits that haven't been eaten. But I absolutely love Boxing Day, or even just like in the evening on Christmas Day, just putting together like a turkey sandwich, cold roast, potatoes and stuff, bubble and squeak, all that stuff. Yeah. I think that's sometimes better than the main meal. I don't know about you, but I just think that's what I really love. I really look forward to it.
I know, it's a bit more chilled, isn't it, I suppose. I must admit, I absolutely adore mince pies.
Ooh, yes.
I'm dreadful for mince pies, and my mum makes mince pie all the year round, but I only ever do it at Christmas, so I don't know why, because I love it so much, but it really is one of my favourites, so I'm really looking forward to making a batch of those. And I always make sausage rolls Christmas Eve, and they never actually make Christmas Day, because by the time everybody's come along and pinch one, they're always gone.
That's the thing with baking all year round, but especially at Christmas. I think Christmas baking is like a thing where the family are all around as well, so people just keep popping in, and it smells great, and you're like, oh, what's that? And you want it to be social at Christmas. You want people to be sort of in the kitchen with you, but it does mean that the food just disappears.
I know. So we're hoping you've got some questions for us tonight. Is anybody online, or would you like to ask us anything at all? We're here. Becky and I were talking about the fact that one of the biggest things that we come across, certainly, is we were having a giggle about how everywhere we go over Christmas, we've got our little pot of Christmas gravy. And that we are literally like, everybody else takes little presents and chocolates, and we turn up with our little pot of Christmas gravy that we know is gluten-free and has been lovingly made, over the previous few days. And I think it's little things like that are really, really important to us, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've been I've been so many places where I've taken like a little thermos flask of gravy. Certain times I've even been to restaurants and I've sneakily taken some gravy with me. Sometimes it's worked out well, sometimes not so well. Sometimes I've used a flask where I then pour it on my food and I've realized, oh no, it's got cold. And that's just like, oh my God. But yeah, I've always found that just it's always good to be prepared. So even though like it seems a bit like, oh God, I've got like I'm taking out some Tupperware out of my bag and I'm going around someone else's house or at a restaurant, and you feel like almost like a bit rude doing it. I don't think it is rude. I think it's just they wouldn't want you to miss out and have like a dry roast dinner, because they wouldn't want to eat that. So I think I think it's a really good thing to just, initially at first when you're gluten-free, it feels like a sort of, you need to get over those sort of hurdles of thinking, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. It's a bit embarrassing. It's not, it's fine. You just want to have a nice meal. So if you want to take your gravy with you, take your gravy with you.
And I think as long as you're honest about it and you talk about things honestly and just say, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm worried about this. Most people are so on board, because people who are feeding you want you to have a good experience too. So it's just being really honest and saying, look, do you mind? We've actually got a lovely question from Kerry here, and it says, what is the whole may contain? My husband and son both diagnosed 3 years ago. We're so nervous about the whole may contain thing. I must admit that we tend to shy away from anything that says may contain, because it usually means that it's been manufactured with a process. So oats might have been farmed with something that's a combine harvest that's been used to also farm gluten, so anything with wheat in it. And it also means in a factory that does contain gluten. So if you're really strict on cross-contamination, which if you're celiac, you should be, we tend to avoid the may contain. And I think that one of the biggest things for us is the really identifiable mark for us was looking for that cross-grain symbol from Coeliac UK, because we knew even before Ben could read labels and stuff, he could point to that, and he understood that meant that he could eat it. So at a very young age, that identifiable mark was really important to us. So my answer would be, personally, we don't eat stuff that may contain. And I look for cross-grain, and I use the Coeliac UK food checker as well all the time, because certainly, again, when Ben was a lot younger and he wasn't necessarily very good at reading labels, he could use that and scan it in. So they're both really good tools, I think, to help you identify stuff.
Yeah, to be honest, I myself, I've always, like, I am not a diagnosed celiac, which I know so many of people who watch. I used to think, oh God, I'm not actually a proper celiac. But for me, I went through that whole process that I know so many of you guys have, where you were told to remove gluten from your diet and then you were tested, and so you couldn't get that proper test. But I have always lived as a celiac, because I know how poorly it makes me. So for me, no may contains, and just generally the most important thing is just to learn to read labels. Once you learn to read ingredients lists and just get the hang of it, at first it seems really daunting and scary, and you're looking at all this stuff that you never did before. You just used to pick up stuff and shove it in your trolley or in your basket, and then all of a sudden you're having to look at stuff and you think, oh my God, there's so much, I have to get my glasses on, I can't see it. But it's, once you get the hang of it, it's so easy. And just understanding all the different things about things being in bold or highlighted and may contains, once you got that, suddenly things just become so much easier. And you know, I know that we've been having to look at gluten-free stuff for years and years and years, but it really does, and it doesn't take all that long. So yeah, for me as well, may contains are a big no.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got the other one, which is what is the key to perfect puff pastry? Oh, off you go, Becky.
Oh, that's a big one to start with.
I was going to say that's not an easy question. I mean,
to be fair, you're the master chef, but I have got I've been working really hard over the last couple of years on puff pastry, and for me, I just tend to make a more simplistic rough puff pastry, and it's just about getting the layers in. Making sure that you're doing it and you're chilling it in between. You're not letting it get too hot, because as soon as you let pastry get too hot, then all the butter starts to leak out and stuff. So for me, it's just temperature is really, really important. And also just using really good quality butter as well, I think is a good shout.
Yes, I agree. And the other thing I find is you're right about it being cold. It has to be. I freeze my butter and grate it onto the pastry to get those lovely layers. And I find that works really well. And also it's flour, and unfortunately the flour blends that we get can change so much from different flour blends to different flour, and you have to find the one that works. It is something that we're all, I think it's like the holy grail of gluten-free cooking. I've done it, and I actually put a recipe in my last book, and even me 3 times, 50% of the time it will come out beautifully, and 50% of the time I have no idea what I've done different. It won't be as good. It is worth persevering if you can get it right, I must admit. And I do quite enjoy the whole process, but it is much longer. Short crust pastry, much easier.
Yeah, I'll do a short crust all day. But I think that's a really important thing to say as well, that, you know, both of us, we're both really fortunate that we have cookbooks and stuff. So you think that every time we make stuff, we must be these, you know, you've won MasterChef. People must think that every time we make things, it comes out perfect. And our own recipes come out perfect all the time as well. But sometimes it's not the case. We're human, you're human. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes it's not always perfect. And what I show on my Instagram and what you show on stuff, it looks really nice and looks perfect because we show the best one, because that's what we want to show. We don't want to show the thing that's gone wrong. But honestly, for everyone, we're not all superhuman. It does go a bit wrong sometimes. So don't worry if, you know, you make a recipe and you think, oh, it doesn't look quite as good as that picture does, because I promise, like, it just takes a bit of practice and everyone will get there.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, because if you're using really good ingredients, often it might look as good, but it's going to taste really lovely.
Definitely.
So I wouldn't worry too much. I've got one here, which is how to make perfect roast potatoes. I know this one. A lot of it's to do with the potato. I have to say, if you stick to a Maris Piper or something that says good for roasting on it, I'm at the moment using red potatoes. It makes all the difference. And I think, cut them into angles, don't cut them into perfect shapes, so you get nice angly bits. Parboil them, drain them really well, and then toss them so you fluff up the outside. And whilst you're doing that, I have to say, goose and duck fat, heat it up in the oven so it's nice and spitting, put the potatoes in there, toss them in it, and put them back in the oven about 180 for, I'd say, 30-40 minutes. Then you can turn them over and leave them for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they should be lovely golden and crispy. Don't keep turning them because they'll break up. And I find that if you can leave them alone, they're brilliant. The good thing about doing Christmas dinner is normally you take your turkey out to rest for that long. So if you don't have a lot of room in the oven, you can stick your roasties in whilst that is resting, and you can have perfect roast potatoes, because they should be eaten. They are best cold. Hot. They're best really hot. We all love it.
I love cold roast potatoes, I must say.
I think we all do, and I have to do extra, but you want them piping hot, really lovely and golden and crunchy and fluffy in the middle, but it's got to be the right potato.
Yes. Okay, so there's another question here from Sheila, and she's asked about Christmas stuffing. Now, for me, I tend to buy Christmas stuffing these days, because I find it in the supermarkets there is actually quite a lot out there that's really good gluten-free wise. So a lot of the supermarkets, especially in places like Tesco, for instance, the Finest range, a lot of them are gluten-free as standard, which is amazing. They often have gluten-free written on the front, which is really handy. So that's for more of like a sausage meat kind of stuffing. But if you want more of the classic like Paxo stuffing, they actually even do that in the free-from-all now. So you don't have to make your own. If you want to make your own, I've got some recipes. I don't know, Celiac UK on there, they've probably got some recipes on the website, because there's so many recipes. A lot of people sort of think with Coeliac UK that there's like the apps like doing the barcode thing for checking food in supermarkets, but also on the website I think there's nearly 1,200 recipes, which is amazing. So there's so much on there. So definitely check that out for recipes. But yeah, personally for me, I'm a bit lazy when it comes to Christmas and stuff. And I just like to buy the stuffing, because I think the ones in the supermarkets, they've got so many different flavor combinations now that I think they're just really nice.
Yeah. I must admit, we're Paxo.
Paxo,
but I do also make my own sausage meat, chestnut, and sausage meat stuffing that I've always made. It's one my mum makes, and it's naturally gluten-free. And that's available on the Celiac. I think I published it last year, Celiac UK. So, like Becky says, there's lots of different recipes out there, and have a look at one that fits your flavour profile, what you love, and just use that one.
Okay. Oh, so Sarah said, well done, ladies. You're great ambassadors for celiacs. Thank you very much. That's very,
thank you.
very kind. Too kind of you. And there's a question for me from Lauren. She said, I'd love to make you spring rolls in the first book, but I can't find rice paper anywhere. Where do you get yours from? So I make my spring rolls and I deep fry them so they get nice and crispy, but you use rice paper wrappers. And they used to be really readily available, I found, in supermarkets in like the Asian section. So in Sainsbury's and Waitrose and stuff used to do them. But they seem to have, ever since the pandemic and stuff, they seem to have just disappeared. So I tend to just buy them on Amazon and they're really cheap, really affordable. Or if you've got like an Asian supermarket near you, they often have them as well. And I find that you can actually get quite a lot of really good products in places like that. So they're really worth having a look in. One thing with sort of Asian supermarkets and stuff, always make sure you do check to see, because there's a lot of gluten-free products, but sometimes you need to check for the made containers, like we were talking about earlier, because they can slip up somewhere. But you have to always remember with labeling and stuff that things, there's laws. So things have to, if something contains something, it has to say that it does. So don't be scared of things in terms of packaging, because the packaging will tell you what's in something.
Yeah. I rice paper, I buy it online or in the supermarkets, the Asian supermarkets. It's quite easy to find. So
yes.
We've got one here. I think any health questions, I know that there's a lot of you coming through. Celiac UK are telling us there's a lot of you coming through. The best thing you can do, neither Becky or I are medical professionals, and I always say to people, please just ring Celiac UK and speak to them directly after the chat, and they will follow up with you. I think I'd feel more comfortable doing that. I know we all face different things, and that's probably the better way to do it. One of the biggest questions we've got is coming through from Anna, and we knew, Becky and I have talked about this a lot. How to dine out or eat out at my friend's house, having been diagnosed 12 years ago. She's still scared to feel poorly. And we totally get that. At the beginning of the chat, we were talking about taking our own gravy. For me, the first thing, I suppose, is Celiac UK, again, got a fantastic list of accredited venues. So that's first stop. But where I live, I'm in a small village in Hampshire, and there isn't many accredited venues. So I always ring the venue before I go and say, can you accommodate us? And I explain how serious it is, the cross-contamination issues. I work in kitchens. I'm aware that a lot of them, particularly in professional kitchens, they're too small. They might not be set up. They might not be set up with separate fryers. So I'd far rather give someone a heads up, a couple of days, to give them a chance. And most of the time they'll say, oh, we'll use a separate saucepan and we can fry that, or we can do this. If it means you've got to pre-order your food to make sure that it's gluten-free and you get what you want, then that's not an issue. I find most people go out of their way to try and help you if you give them enough time. And when you're dining at other people's houses, I don't know about Becky, but again, I always make sure I give people a heads up and make them very aware that please don't think we're being rude, but we're happy to bring whatever. And if you've got a cheese board, would you mind just plating a little separate plate of cheese, cover it with cling film, so Ben can have all the cheeses and he can bring his own biscuits, but we know that nobody else has dipped in a spoon or something. And the same with crudities or anything. And just be really honest with people and really cool about it. And I found that I've never really come across a difficulty. I've had restaurants say, I'm so sorry, I can't accommodate you. And I'd much rather that than go somewhere and be ill. So I think with us, it's just generally trying to be educating other people as much as I can and saying, what can I do to help you? I'm happy to bring stuff with me. Please don't be offended if it's in a little, I'll put it on a plate so we all look like we're eating the same. But for people would far rather you were well and able to relax and enjoy themselves at your house than you get at their house, than you getting stressed. And the same with the professionals that I work with. They would far rather that you were honest and upfront and gave them time to be able to offer you what you need. And I think that that's the absolute key to it with me.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that on the head completely. I've got nothing really to add to that. I think the main thing that I always think that for eating out, it is the case that I don't think you can always be, when you're diagnosed celiac or you're gluten-free, you can't always be super spontaneous like you used to be. You can't just walk down the street and go into any old cafe and just expect that you can eat there. And that's possibly the one slight negative. But it doesn't have to be, so long as you just do that little bit of planning and researching ahead of time. And like you said, just calling places up. I think sometimes people think that they've planned and then they'll go in straight away and just ask there and then, but just calling people up in advance, honestly, it helps so much, and you'll have such a better experience if you do that. So yeah, I'd really recommend that. And I don't think that if you catch people unaware, then sometimes they can just be like, oh my god, and they're just like a bit worried, like, oh. And the reason that sometimes people in restaurants you might have found in the past possibly have been maybe a bit off is just that they're worried. They're often scared that they might do something wrong. So allowing them to have that little bit of time, just to think things through, maybe even buy some stuff in. Very recently I was away abroad, and I was at a hotel, and I told the hotel staff that I was gluten-free, and then they came up to me, to my table, and they showed a whole bag of stuff that they bought from a supermarket locally, which it was such a lovely thing to do. But if I hadn't have said that, then they might not have had anything, and it could have been a completely different experience, and they would have felt awful about it. So just giving people a little heads up ahead of time at restaurants and at people's houses, it will transform. It will make you feel better. It will make them feel better. And the whole thing is that you don't want to, like, especially when you go into people's houses, you don't want to catch people again off guard and make people feel awful, because obviously you could say that being gluten-free, we're in a worse situation, we can't eat stuff, but you also want everyone to be happy. You want them to feel comfortable inviting you round. So I think it's sort of a thing where we have to be understanding that it takes a little bit of time for everyone to understand it. If someone's not gluten-free and some people haven't even heard of celiac disease, it might take a bit of time for them to understand. But as long as we are patient with them and we just try and help them as much as we can, then it's a win-win all round then.
I agree. I've got one here which really speaks to my heart, to be honest. It's from Sophie. I struggle with my teenage daughter who has been diagnosed for 10 years. She struggles with school dinners, taking a packed lunch, and very much feels singled out. Just to book and call the school if she wants any food at school, and lunch products for children to grab and eat are still limited. This is one of my biggest pressure points with regards to children being diagnosed. I know that Ben very much, if he wanted to eat a gluten-free lunch, he had to go to the front of the queue, and then he would only have certain options. So then he wouldn't be eating with the rest of his friends. He might be at the back of the queue. And if he was waited at the back of the queue, he wouldn't have any food by the time he got to the front of the queue. And there were certain issues. And then there's only so many jack potatoes with baked beans one child can eat, you know. It became a real issue. And I know some schools are fabulous at it, and I think they are getting better. Like, there's no reason to buy anything that's breaded or not that isn't gluten-free, to be honest. Even in restaurants, all the panko breadcrumbs we use are gluten-free. But there's still a long way to go. And it breaks my heart, because at that age, food can be something that should be so inclusive. And when all your mates are going to Mackie D's or something and you can't, it's horrible. So with regards to lunches, we very much got it off pat. Ben really loves pasta salads. So we used to do a lot of pasta salads. Now we do a lot of wraps. He really loves the wraps, some of the ones that we've got out now. Some of them can be brilliant. And I used to stuff them with a lot of protein, try and buy chicken, or he loves cheese. I'd often do little cheese and pickle sticks that he could eat. And it was really trying a case of being inventive. And one of the ways I found to do it was to try and make his lunch so that all the other kids went, wow, we want that. So I'd put in little meringues in there, or chocolate Rice Krispie cakes or something, so that everybody was saying that's amazing. And people weren't going, oh gosh, what is that? But it's an issue at school. Something that food should bring people together, even in school lunches, suddenly becomes something that excludes your child, and it's heartbreaking. So yeah, school lunches were definitely something. I also used to make quite a lot of tortillas, you know, and so he'd have those cold, which is almost like a bit of quiche or quiches or things. And I'm aware I had the time to do that, and that I love cooking. But the other thing, of course, is he loves cold sausages. So we chop them up and send them in with a little bit of ketchup to dip in or something. So just anything to try and keep him interested. And I'm probably going to get shot down for saying this, but I wasn't always 100% worried about how healthy they were. Because if he wanted to take home, he could have fruit and he could have vegetables, and that he could have all those wonderful things. And I could stuff him up with vegetables, but it was more important he ate at school, and he ate something that was going to get him through the day without him having a crash because he hadn't had enough carbs or whatever. So, yeah, it was treats and things as well. But if you do need anything, if you want to message me on my social media, I'm more than happy to give you a hand on that one, because it's something I feel very passionate about.
Yeah, to be honest, it's something that I don't have kids, and I feel really passionate about this as well. I think mainly because I had to stop eating gluten when I was like 18, and I always think back and I think, oh, how lucky was I that it wasn't when I was, a child, when I was younger, and I would have had to struggle through these sort of things. And I think one of the other things I always think about is that when I was first went gluten-free and stuff, my very first birthday was my 19th birthday, and my mum bought me a birthday cake that everyone else could eat, and I couldn't eat. And it was my first birthday being gluten-free, and I couldn't have a slice of cake. And I always think I could cope with that. At the time I was a bit gutted, but I could cope. But I always think about, children who have to miss out at parties or at school and stuff. And for me, it's one of the things I am the most passionate about. And I'm hoping, I know that Celiac UK are really passionate about this as well, and really want to, push forward and try and help to make change and stuff. And that's something that, as part of me becoming an ambassador of Celiac UK, that's something that I really want to sort of work on myself as well. So hopefully the future will be better. But there is lots of options, like Jane has said, in terms of bringing stuff in with you. I just really love that we could try and help to educate kitchens and stuff at school, so that people can have school dinners, and also with the whole food technology side of things as well. I'd love for there to be more of that. So hopefully that's something that for the future that can be improved, and that's all we can hope for.
Definitely. It's just a passion. It's hard. I get how difficult it is, but also after your teenage daughter, and I'm happy to help. Genuinely, both Becky and I think will be happy to help. Becky, biscuits.
Oh yeah. So Sarah's asked, you'll have to tell me which biscuits, because to be honest, in my baking book, there is a whole chapter on biscuits. So let me know what biscuits, either in the chat now, or you can happily message me on social media, like on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and I can get back to you directly. But yeah, just let me know now if you want, and I'm sure I can help you.
Yeah. I think one of the things I found as well is it just depends. You could be cooking a savoury biscuit or whatever, but sometimes just a spoonful of cream cheese in it can stop that graininess and stop it all falling apart. It's a little tip that someone gave me, and that I don't know, Becky will answer that question from her books, but I really do think that I found that can help quite a lot in biscuit dough. I don't know if Becky's done the same.
I quite like that.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's the fats or something, but it does seem to work.
Okay, so we are
getting a lot about gluten-free oats, and I know that it's an issue. I'm lucky Ben can eat them. Most people on a celiac diet can eat them, and I think if they can, they should. There is like I said, I'd stay away from medical reasons, but there is some really gut health things associated with it. But I understand not everybody can, and I think Celiac UK will address that more offline. Well, not offline, but with you all later. And we know that there's lots of information on all this stuff from the Celiac UK website, and I know both Becky. I wish when Ben was first diagnosed, I didn't know about Celiac UK, and we were sort of left very much, okay, he's got this, and off you go. And I always thank my lucky stars that I was able to cook, and I was taught to cook from scratch by my mum and my nan. So therefore, I had that knowledge in my head. But we went years eating gluten-free. We used to call them biscuits, which were Yorkshire puddings and things. As I experimented and as products got better and things. So I know Becky touched on it earlier, but when you say you're a master chef, or Becky's amazing at what she does. The books speak for themselves. You've got to, we all have these issues. We all get it wrong, and we all learn by mistake, and we all find what we like and what we don't. So as much as we're offering you these tips now, please don't get disheartened if anything does go wrong.
No, definitely. So we've had a question about the fact that gluten-free food seems very expensive, especially if you're on a budget. So I thought maybe with this we could kind of give a few tips, maybe in terms of how we sort of navigate that, because both of us have to buy gluten-free food all the time, and it's been initially when I first went gluten-free, I was quite shocked. I was very surprised at, you know, you go down the free from aisle, or for me, when I was first when I was first gluten free, there wasn't a free from aisle. There was a couple of things. So I think it's crazy that everything has improved so much. There is so much choice now compared to back then. But for me, one of the things that I find is really important in terms of budgeting and gluten-free is to not always be so focused on the free from aisle. Yeah. So you sort of think, oh, you know, I'm gluten-free, must rush to the free from aisle and just pick up everything. And whilst there's some amazing products there, there's also so much outside of the free from aisle which doesn't have that sort of extra cost to it because it's naturally gluten-free. So I'd say most aisles in the supermarket, really, when you think about it, are naturally gluten-free. There's, you know, you've got your bakery section and your breads and stuff that isn't, and that's somewhere that, you know, I never even go down it. But the rest, a lot of the supermarket, all your fruit and veg, your meats, your fish, a lot of the sauces and stuff, like there's stuff in the free from aisle I find often, like you'll find that there's a jar of like tomato and basil pasta sauce, for instance. And initially, you sort of, when you first are diagnosed celiac, you might think, oh, must buy that. But actually, you can go down a different aisle in the supermarket, just the regular one, and you'll find it for a quarter of the price, because the regular one is actually gluten-free, it's safe for celiacs. So I think it's a case of learning and going around the supermarket, taking a little bit of time when you're first gluten-free, but you'll find that there's so much stuff there that it's just what you probably used to buy, or you'll find some new things that you didn't buy in the past and you actually really like. You just have to have a look around, and there's so much. It's not all about just, right, must go down the free from aisle and all the breads this much and all the pastas this much. There's a lot of other things you can get.
Oh, do you know, it's a huge consideration. I sort of understand because it has to have separate processing parts and everything else, but the mechanics behind it doesn't help when you're paying £2.50 for 8 biscuits and you've got a teenager who would eat the 8 biscuits before they even sat down and ate their dinner. So I am more than aware how very difficult it is to budget. I follow exactly what Becky's saying. Most of my supermarket trolley is full of food that isn't stamped gluten-free. It's literally rice, and so much of it is naturally gluten-free. Meats, fruit, vegetables, all these things. I use frozen fruit. So if I'm making a pavlova or something, rather than reaching for the fresh raspberries, I'll go in and buy like a whole 500 grams for £2. Well, you can just put those on the top and it's not going to make any difference to the taste, really. Maybe if you want to decorate with a few fresh ones. But there are so many ways that you don't have to, you know, spend a fortune on it, and you can cut down. So I think that it is, when you're first diagnosed, I understand how overwhelming it is and how expensive it can be. But also, once you get used to it, you realise, and I keep saying this, it is food, it's just food, and it's really good food.
Yeah.
You know, and once you get over that hurdle of and manage to get yourself away from the free from aisle, there are certain tomato sauces, it's exactly the same product. Becky says the only difference is that it's got a gluten-free thing. It's the same product, it's just a gluten-free, and it's got an extra couple of quid on it. So you do get more savvy, and it does get easier. And I go back to the Celiac UK gluten-free app again. Just, you can scan normal stuff on the shelves and it will tell you whether it's gluten-free or not.
Yeah, it's fab. It's something that I wouldn't be without, especially early on. But even now, like, I've been gluten-free for so long, but I find sometimes it's just so easy just to have it and just to check things and just see. And it does the job. So definitely don't be afraid to shop outside of the free from aisle, because there is so much there waiting for you. And you'll save so much money. Honestly, you will save huge amounts, and you'll discover that there's actually so much that you can eat that you thought that you couldn't eat. It's not as scary or as daunting as initially you're suddenly told, right, you can't have gluten, and then you see this long list of things that you can't have, but actually there's so many alternatives, and there's so many things that you don't even need to swap, because it's fine to start with. So
things like rice noodles and stuff we use a lot now when we're making broths and that. I wouldn't even have thought to use them growing up. It wasn't even something that was in our vocabulary when I was long time ago, because I'm a lot older than Becky. But it opens your horizons as well, and it makes you look outside the box and sometimes try new things, which is always lovely. I got a really lovely message here I wanted to read out because this really does resonate with me, why I love being a Celiac UK ambassador. It's to a lady called Nicola, and I just wanted to thank Celiac UK. I was at my lowest yesterday. My autistic son is celiac and dairy-free. I phoned Celiac UK and spoke to a lovely dietitian for 45 minutes who turned me right around. I was truly grateful. And that's the thing I think we've got to shout out. This what they do, the charity is incredible. And I know the UK helpline is free for everyone. The number is 0333 332 2033. So if I've made that, but you'll see it on the websites and things. It's open every day from 10 till 4. And when I go along to the shows and I speak to people from the Celiac UK stand, I am aware of how often that helpline is truly a lifeline for people, particularly if they've got young children and they're genuinely struggling. So a shout out to the charity and why we're here tonight, because you read messages like that and it makes it all worthwhile and you know why you do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think the thing is that, you know, I've recently become an ambassador, and before that I was on the outside a bit, just like everyone probably listening. And you think, oh, you kind of don't realize how much Celiac UK do. I've had my eyes completely open to, and I don't think they blow their own trumpet enough, because
there's lobbying at Parliament and all the accrediting things and the cross-grain symbol. When you actually look at what the charity does, it's incredible, and what your little bit of money goes towards to become a member, I think is really worth it. For the community, it's worth it. Yeah. I've got a lady here asking Claire about pickled onions and vinegar. I've always taken the view, a bit like most alcohols, that because it's distilled, yeah, I am right. Because it's distilled, you are fine to eat malt vinegars and things, and all pickles. You know, as long as they haven't got a wheat in the pickle, and you're not eating piccalilli, it's got wheat in it.
Although I do
most vinegars are fine.
Yeah, I do think that recently, if something says it's for instance says it's got barley malt vinegar, barley malt extract stuff in it, I think the stance that Celiac UK have had over the past year or so is that it needs to state that it's gluten-free on the packaging. So whilst in the past it was a little bit different, and it was just like, okay, if it's got barley in it, then you could use, let's say, like the food checker, and it would show stuff. Now these days it really does need to say gluten-free on the packaging, and this is for a few reasons, but like one of the main things is that Celiac UK are just really trying to encourage brands and stuff and manufacturers to start to label their stuff gluten-free and to make sure that everything clearly is gluten-free. So it's a really positive step, I think, going forwards. But yeah, also I think with vinegar, I think a lot of people sort of think, oh, it's all, just, there's just barley malt vinegar, there's all this, but there's so many different types of vinegar that people don't even realize about, like cider vinegar. I love cider vinegar on chips. I think it's great. And I think that, again, it's this whole thing that when you go gluten-free, just start having a look around at different products that you might never have touched before. You might always rush to the malt vinegar in the supermarket before, but there's loads of other vinegars. There's loads of different things, and it's actually quite exciting.
I use lots of different vinegars. I've got so many, and raspberry vinegars and things. They can all add something different. So yeah, in cooking, like most things, I find that you need, a lot of people will add extra salt to something, and sometimes it needs a bit of acid. So you squeeze a lemon or vinegars. So for me, it's just another whole gamut of what I cook with. So yeah, I think most of me find the barley malt, you need to check that it's gluten-free. But if you've got white wine vinegar or any other vinegars, you should be fine. And rice wine vinegar or stuff, I believe. So we've got started Kashara, if I said that right, a list of specific products. You've been seeing that for over a week and gluten-free for 3-4 weeks. I think it's a great way to start to have a list. I do have a list of products that I probably rely on. I've always got things like corn flour in my cupboard that I used to thicken gravy with and stuff. But I think it's to do with what you love to eat and what your list will generate from what you love to eat. But also, again, I can't fault Celiac UK, over 200,000 products. Go online and they will help you.
Yeah. And I think as well, like when you first are diagnosed and stuff, you, like I've said earlier, you sort of suddenly think that, oh, there's loads of things that I won't be able to eat. Oh, I can't have this anymore. I can't have that anymore. Don't think like that. Think of your favorite dishes that you really, really, really love. And there's usually a way of switching things up and making it so that you can have them. So for example, in my first book, I did a whole section called fakeaways, because so many people suddenly think, oh, you know, I can't have a Chinese, I can't have this, I can't have all these nice dishes because of soy sauce and this and that. But you totally can, and you don't have to suddenly be like, right, I'm never having chow mein again, I'm never having this again, I'm never having that again, I'm never having sweet and sour like chicken balls again. All these things you can have. It's just doing those little switches, and it is often just with really simple switches. So, for instance, I use a lot of corn flour to make batters, and it works so well. So you're not even having to use like a more expensive gluten-free flour. You're just using a naturally gluten-free flour. So never just sort of think, oh my God, I'm gluten-free, I'm never going to be able to eat that again, never going to be able to have that, because my aim is always to sort of reunite people with the foods that they sort of think, oh God, I can't have that anymore. Yes. And show them that you really can have them all the things, all the basic things. That's why I started creating recipes and stuff myself, just because I was a bit fed up that suddenly I was told, oh, you can't have that anymore. And it's like, what? Just because my stomach doesn't agree with something doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to have that food anymore.
So I also find a lot of the gluten-free food, they seem to want to make it overly complicated or different flavors or something. But actually what you want, you do just want your steak pie or chicken pie. You don't need to have it with all these other things. So I found that as well. And children, my kids are great at eating, but you don't always want something that's exotic. You sometimes just want the day-to-day basics that you really miss. So I'm totally 100% with you on that one, Becky. I think it's really important that you just come back to eating what you love and to make recipes work for you.
I've got a question here. You've got a question, Michelin. Okay, so I'll ask this to you. Do you have any advice for a vegetarian celiac?
Yeah, I do, because like most mums, their children go off to university and come back veggies. And so all of a sudden I'm cooking for gluten-free and vegetarian. And actually, do you know, it was another thing. It really opened my mind to a whole separate level of cooking and thinking outside the box and not relying on a protein. But I think for me, I was of the same mind I was when Ben was diagnosed, that I know when you go elsewhere, you might have to sit in a different meal. But in my house, we're all going to sit and eat the same meal. There is no way in a million years he's going to sit and eat something different here. Food should be about sharing, and particularly as a family. And I had the same view when Rebecca was a vegetarian. So my advice really was to take the same approach that I took when I was working with proteins. I worked out what we really loved, what vegetables we loved, and took those and elevated them into dishes. So we'd make, I don't know, beautiful roasts out of squashes and lovely tray bakes, which were just veggie. And now if I make a moussaka or say a shepherd's pie or something, it's likely as often to be a veggie version as it is a meat version. And there are a number of reasons for that. I think we're all looking at our environmental footprint. I am a carnivore. I'm always going to eat meat, but we're all trying to cut down on maybe the amount we eat. So it's just a healthier alternative. I use an awful lot of pulses, and I'm not adverse to using tins and cans of pulses to make my life easier. And I find that, again, I use corn flour and a lot of make my own stocks. I must admit, I know I've got the time to do it, but a lot of my veggie peelings and things I roast off and make my own stocks just to add that extra umami crunch. And you do get things like yeast flakes and that you soon get used to using as well. But started off simple. Just took my shepherd's pie, replaced lentils, got loads of flavourings into it, you know, garlic and some sauces and different things, made it so it tasted really delicious, and then put your mash on top. And that's really where my second book, Gluten-free Hassle-Free, came from, because it was the food I was cooking at the time. And like Becky, it's all about the food you're cooking and what you love cooking, and trying to make that accessible for everybody. So it was a real passion and something that I really enjoyed doing. And whilst I'm talking about that, I just want to give a shout out to the Smile thing on the Amazon app, which I know you can log in, and if you go in, I don't know technically how you do it, but I know I've set it up. So every time I go on Amazon, it comes up, and a percentage of it just goes straight to my charity, my chosen charity, which is Celiac UK. And in these day and age, when charities are desperate in need of funding, it's really important. So if you're buying anything off Amazon, for instance, if you go through Smile, a percentage of that money will go to the
It doesn't cost anyone anything more.
No.
So it's a really amazing thing. And, you know, I know a lot of people they don't always want to maybe buy stuff off Amazon, but it's a really great, Amazon is an amazing place really, because you can get everything. So being able to give a little bit back while shopping on Amazon, I think is a really nice way of doing it. And it's not just if you were, let's say, buying our books, which thank you so much if you do, but it's literally for anything, however small or however big. You can, I think it is just something like smile.amazon.co.uk.
Yeah, I think so. It comes
something like that. I'm sure if you search for it, or someone could put it in the chat for us, then yeah, it's just as easy as that. So definitely do that, because I wasn't doing it for years, I must admit. And then when I realized I do it on everything now, and I make sure everyone I know does as well. Yeah.
No, it's just such an easy way to donate, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
We got a question from Harjeet, which is that it can be passed to genes. Again, medically, I don't know, but one of my biggest things when people do occasionally question me on celiac disease or gluten-free and roll their eyes and maybe think you're being fussy about your particular... I'm so sorry, I've got a cat on my side and they're not allowed. He knows I'm distracted. He's not allowed on my worktop, so whilst I think George off the side, it's definitely live, isn't it? Apologies about that. One of the things I always explain to people is that it's actually an autoimmune disease, and it's genetic from my understanding. I might be wrong, and therefore we don't have a choice. And so some people do choose to eat gluten-free, and I know Becky says she's not diagnosed, but a lot of people, why would you put yourself back through that pain if you know that being gluten-free helps you so much? But it isn't a lifestyle choice. It's actually a necessity, a medical necessity, and therefore that's why it helps, again, when you're trying to get across your point that you need to look at cross-contamination and you're eating in a restaurant, just to be very polite about it and say, look, this isn't something I've chosen to do. You wouldn't give somebody who's got peanut allergy peanuts, somebody with diabetes, something laden with sugar. Please don't give that to us. It's going to make us sick. So I found that in a very quiet way, it's lovely, a really helpful way that people can very quickly understand how serious it is as a diagnosis and how much it means and how important it is to be gluten-free, and not something that needs your eyes rolling out or thinking that you've jumped on some sort of weird fad or bandwagon, because I don't think any of us would be making our life more difficult or more expensive if we didn't have to. Because I can honestly, Ben would love to be tucking into something at Pizza Hut or something with his mates, I'm sure.
Definitely, yeah. I certainly can think of all the things that I've never had a Krispy Kreme donut, and why would I not want to have one? So yeah. But anyway, we've got another question from Ben, who said, hey both, thank you for hosting the Q&A. My question for you both, not necessarily Christmas related, but what advice would you give to somebody looking to travel abroad? So I think both of us probably haven't had the most travel recently over the past couple of years. I did go away with work about a month ago or so, but for me, I think it's very similar in terms of to when we were talking earlier about eating out and stuff. A lot of planning and research needs to go into, and I'm not trying to make it seem like, it's like a lesson at school or something where you have to do lots of planning and stuff, but just doing a little bit of research before you go somewhere, even before you pick where you're going on holiday. I so often base where I go around, like, I look at food. I research online, and Coeliac UK have some amazing travel guides on their website for super popular places, and I think just doing a bit of research ahead of time to find if there is options in the places that you're going can do you absolutely the world of good. Like, for example, a few years ago, before the pandemic and stuff, I found out that Italy is an incredible place for gluten-free. Yes. They've got their own celiac society, which is amazing in Italy. I think they've got a huge amount of celiacs actually diagnosed in Italy. So that's one of the reasons that they have such a amazing sort of array of restaurants and stuff. But I wouldn't have known that. And I probably wouldn't have even gone to Italy had I not done the research, because I would have been like, oh God, pizza, pasta, I'm not going to be able to have anything. But by doing that research, I found out, oh, there is so many restaurants, they understand things. There's lots of restaurants I went to that had completely separate kitchens for gluten-free, or were just all gluten-free, because they have such good quality ingredients over there and amazing chefs that understand, being celiac. So I think for me, It is just really about doing the research, and you'll find that some places are better than others. There might be certain countries or cities that aren't quite as good and aren't quite as understanding. And, if you want to go to them, then you still can, but you just need to find you just need to do that little bit extra research. But there are some amazing places now, and with everything, hopefully, fingers crossed, opening up a bit more in the new year, hopefully a lot of you guys can maybe go on that holiday that you haven't been able to for the last few years. And definitely don't worry about eating out. Just do that research. Celiac UK can help you. I can definitely help you. I'm sure Jane can for certain places as well, in terms of just, there's so much out there. So, don't feel like, oh, I'm stuck. I'm just going to have to be at home and I'm not going to be able to go on holiday, because we all deserve a holiday, I think, after the last couple of years. So yeah, there's loads of different guides and stuff out there. I don't know what you think, Jane.
The same really. I know Italy's got a high proportion of celiacs. That's why I think one of the reasons why it's such a brilliant place to go. But I know Spain is really good. We've had great success with Portugal, South America as well, because a lot of their diet is corn-based, and they'll use naturally corn-based flours and things. But there are places that are more difficult and challenging, and it's there to find, if you're prepared to go that extra mile and make the extra work. I find that one of the saddest things is street food, particularly in Asian countries, because they use a cheaper version of soy sauce or whatever, and that means it's a no-go. But if you go knowing that, and you're not going to set yourself up for disappointment, you're aware there's certain things you can't do. So don't set yourself false expectations. But most places are open in the world, and the world was becoming a smaller place. Celiac UK, again, I know we keep banging the drum, but incredible resource when you're traveling. But just again, it is just about knowledge, as Becky says. I can't improve on what she said, really. It's just about doing your homework. I love eating. It's one of my favourite things to do, which is no surprise. So, we're always going to go somewhere where we can eat lots and eat well. So that's the first priority.
Okay, so Mark and Anthony are both after the perfect gluten-free croissant. Any recommendations? So croissants are hard to make. Yeah. They're difficult for anyone. Gluten-free, non-gluten-free. Yeah. I do have a recipe in my second book for gluten-free croissants. It's not just like a one-day thing. You do need to take time, do it over a couple of days and stuff. And it definitely is one of these things that takes practice. Like, I took months, literally months. I probably made them 100 times before I was happy. So obviously the recipe, you wouldn't have to make them 100 times if you tried the recipe, because I've done the hard work for you. But it's definitely a difficult thing to make. But there are also gluten-free croissants these days in the supermarkets, which you can get. I know that Tesco, I think M&S, Morrison's, I think they all do them, and they're the sort that you have to heat up. But those are perfectly okay. And there's also a really, really amazing place in London that's called Manaju that's like a bakery in London, and they do gluten-free croissants, which are incredible, and they send them all over the UK. So wherever you live in the UK, you can order them. And I know a lot of people are doing that so they can have croissants on like Christmas morning and stuff, which is really nice. So there are options. It's definitely one of the trickier things to make.
Definitely. It's like puff pastry. That's what it is, and it's laminating. And even if you make them and not gluten free, it's going to take you 2 days to do it. Yeah. So it's a real commitment to do. If we're going down that route, would tend to find the bakery. Becky said it's fantastic. There are a few really lovely niche bakeries that you can use for things like that I've used in the past, and they're brilliant. They are expensive. Unfortunately, I can't tell you they're not, but if you're really craving one, then that would be my best route, unless you will spend 2 days. Which I have to say I have done, but my it's not something I'm going to do again, if I'm honest.
It's hard work.
I love my baking. I love my cooking, but that was an awful lot. And when I can order one online, I think that sometimes things.
Yeah, I think for me, sometimes I want to bake something because I'm hungry and I want to eat it. So I want a slice of cake. I don't want to wait till 48 hours later to eat that slice of cake. By that point, I might not want it anymore.
Exactly. I think we're all the same as well. There are times. I mean, we both bake, we both cook, and I'm aware that I'm lucky I've got the time and the experience to do that. If somebody comes in from work and they've got 20 minutes to get something on the table, it's a very different. You've got hungry kids being horrible. It's a very different situation. But by the same, and we are all entitled to get those things, you know, reach through fish fingers or something. So I'm aware of the limitations and everything else, and we're all sitting here saying, buy this, make this, make this. But there are things available now. And like the one thing I will say that I've noticed over the last 18 years of cooking family gluten-free is the amount of food that's available is incredible to what it was. Even down to bread that used to come in a horrible tin. And I remember trying to feed it to my chickens, and the chickens wouldn't even eat it. It was that bad. So, you know, when you know that anything that eats anything won't eat it, you know it's that bad. So I genuinely think that it is getting better. And it is a really positive move. And there's more and more people like Becky out there who we're trying so hard to promote and show people how accessible this is, and working with organisations like Coeliac UK. Hopefully we're getting that message across that it's just the food, and please enjoy it and have fun with your friends, and, you know, relax and just try and have a great time and embrace it, because it's a fantastic way of cooking once you get used to it. It really is.
Okay, so Katie has said, is Coeliac UK also helpful for people who are intolerant without celiac disease? And I would say absolutely yes. I know so many people who use the Coeliac UK apps and stuff, because at the end of the day, if you're gluten-free for any reason, it's really, really helpful to go to the supermarket and have the gluten-free food checker to be able to check things. And equally, all the sort of venues and like the restaurant recommendations and guides, it's just so valuable for everyone. So I think whilst it's called Coeliac UK, because that's, you know, that's what the main sort of thing is, it's for everyone, and it's not just for people who are gluten intolerant, it's for friends of those people, family of those people. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, I always say everyone knows someone who's gluten-free. So for me, Coeliac UK is so incredible for such a huge, vast amount of different types of people. And actually, one of the things that if you're still thinking about Christmas presents, because I admit right now I haven't done any Christmas shopping yet. It's embarrassing. It's terrible. I feel I'm so stressed about it. But one of the things that you can, that Coeliac UK are offering this year, is that you can actually gift someone membership to Coeliac UK, which I think is just a really nice idea. You can just pop a little note in a card. And then whether it's for someone who maybe is newly diagnosed or is gluten intolerant, or maybe just like, I don't know, your mum who you really want to understand more about the fact that you're celiac, and you want them to kind of get it a little bit more. I think it's a really useful thing. And there's so much that comes with that membership, not just the apps, which to me are one of the best things, but all the recipes. And yeah, you get a nice magazine through the post, which is actually really, really good. So yeah, there's I'd say Coeliac UK is just such an amazing thing that I'm so grateful that I'm a part of, and I'm so honoured for that. But I'm also so grateful just for them generally, that over the past sort of decade or so, they've been there for me. And I think that, you know, that they've been there for so many people. So yeah, definitely for gluten intolerant people, it's just as good for them as well.
It's just an invaluable resource, isn't it? I know that Coeliac UK, we're going to have to wrap up, I think, but I know that Coeliac UK are going to go through all the questions. And if there's anything we didn't get a chance to answer, they're going to try and do that as well. But I also know that Becky is doing a fantastic gluten-free Stolen Bites cook-along on Friday. So tell us a little bit more about that, Becky. This is really, really exciting.
Yeah, so on Friday, I've decided that I'm going to change my kitchen into like a kitchen film set, and I'm going to be making my gluten-free Stolen Bites. It's going to be a cook along. I was really debating what to make, and I asked a lot of you guys what you'd like me to make, and I wanted to make something that can be made from start to finish in the time. So, you know, we're going to be able to, hopefully you can get all the ingredients together. I'm sure Coeliac UK will put out the ingredients. I'll put them all out. And then we can all make it at the same time. We can pop it in the oven. We can have a chat while they're in the oven. And then we can sit down and maybe enjoy a bite or two before we head off for our Friday evening relaxation. So yeah, I really hope that you can come along. Let me know if anyone's got any questions on my social media accounts and stuff. But I'd love it for so many of you to come, because I know that a lot of you have made the stollen bites before. I know a lot of you are really interested in it. Stollen is one of those things that people, I think, gluten-free people think, oh, I can't have that anymore, but you can. So definitely come along for that. I think it's at about 5 o'clock. We've done it about 5 because I thought if there's going to be Christmas parties, maybe you can sort of, whilst you're getting ready, whilst you're putting your makeup on or something and getting yourself looking pretty, you can watch along as well.
Lovely. That sounds amazing. Really, really good. So that's fabulous. But I just want to say thank you, everybody. It's been fabulous. We've tried to answer as many as we can. Both Becky and I do like to talk, so hopefully we haven't bored you too much. But I really just thank you so much to Celiac UK. Hope we've been helpful, but if you need anything else, I'm sure that as they say, they will come back to your questions that we haven't managed to cover. But can't say great for you all to join us, and have the most amazing Christmas and Happy New Year. And I hope you can all be with your loved ones this year, because I think that's what we're all planning, isn't it? Just to be with people. So lots of love to all, and happy Christmas from me.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I've really enjoyed just hanging out with you. So see you all soon.
Take care, everyone. See ya.
Bye.